Initial stake pool offerings, or ISPOs as they're more commonly known, are unique to the Cardano ecosystem and are a fantastic way for projects to raise funds. Now, this doesn't exist anywhere else in the crypto space that I've seen. It's a unique thing because of the way the Cardano protocol works. You can raise your fees to a particular amount within a stake pool, absorb all the rewards that would normally go to a delegate, and in return distribute out your tokens to those delegates. Now, the beautiful thing about it is that those delegates don't give up their initial amount of ADA that they put into these pools. Whereas in an ISPO or IDO, you essentially exchange your tokens for a brand new one. And some of these projects just don't make it. So there's a bit of risk there for your initial capital that you put into these projects may end up turning into dust and you never see that back. But these ones here, you only give up the rewards that you would normally get for staking. And it's a really fantastic way of going about it. I have Marvin here who has started up a project called Maestro, a ISPO or initial stake pool offering service that manages the whole process, setting up the stake pools and setting up the entire distribution of the tokens and all the mechanics behind an ISPO so that projects can just come in, use their services and fire up the whole ISPO for their projects and build up that funding mechanism for them. We talk about the pros and cons and all sorts of things around ISPOs, so let's get into it.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. I have the CEO and co-founder of Maestro, Marvin Bertin, joining me on this episode to talk about their platform, Maestro, and I'm really excited about this one. I absolutely love ISPOs. It's one of the core fundamentals, I think, of fundraising within the Cardano ecosystem. And we're going to see this evolve quite a bit over the next few years. Marvin, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, yes. Thank you for having me, Pete.
So I'd like to start off with a little bit of your crypto and blockchain journey and understand your background before coming into your product here at the moment that you're building out. Can you explain to everyone a little bit about your background and how you got into crypto?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a software engineer by training. More specifically, I specialize in machine learning, AI, deep learning. I worked in the Bay Area in San Francisco for a couple of years. Applying my skills in machine learning in the field of biotech. So I worked for a biotech called Freenome, which does early cancer detection by sequencing the DNA in a blood draw. And then we had the task of building algorithms that can learn from data and improve over time to detect early signs of cancer. So that's why I kind of led a team. I led the machine learning research platform. So a lot of the infrastructure and the tooling to be able to experiment and run models at scale, and be able to build and train those algorithms. So that did pretty well. That company actually raised over $1 billion. So in biotech, that actually is not uncommon to raise that much kind of money because there's a lot of capital that needs to go into also the sequencing and the lab, things like that. So that's where I got my street creds and chops. And then I moved into doing a bit of consulting in crypto. So I was a senior consultant on DeFi projects on Ethereum and Cosmos, kind of helping projects improve their DEXs, building yield optimizers, also trying to come up with trading strategies and things like that. And so that's kind of like I got my first foot into the door and applying my skills into the blockchain industry. And I, like many people here, I kind of really fell for Cardano, really was intrigued by its bespoke blockchain design and kind of its trying to really implement things from first principles and trying to come up maybe with new ways of doing smart contracts and DeFi. And so that's when I kind of decided I want to really work on a Cardano project. And so I then joined Genius Yield as a CSO. That's where I worked with Lars in designing the Genius DEX that uses, it's an order book DEX that gives you concentrated liquidity and using an order book design. So you can bypass implement loss and you can have different types of orders like limit orders and stop loss, things like that. And on top of that, we want to build the yield optimizer. And it's actually working through with Genius Yield on building a lot of the tooling for the DEX, but also the tooling for the ISPO that me and Vardres, my co-founder at Maestro, decide that we can actually just reuse a lot of the things we've built and spin that out into a service on its own, because we realized there is a lot of demand for those kind of basic building block on Cardano to develop and be able to launch your apps quicker. Cardano is still a very much an ecosystem that is maturing. And so we realized that a lot of those tools, instead of having everyone reinventing the wheels, we can just package that and provide that service. And so that's where kind of Maestro organically came to be. And so we're starting off with this like ICO platform that's going to be our first product.
That's quite a little journey, going from biotech over to consulting, Genius Yield, and now over to also over to Maestro, building up this. I guess essentially it's a SaaS, kind of a software as a service platform for other projects in the ecosystem that want to run an ISPO, essentially, and raise funds that way.
Yes. So for this ISPO, it's wanted to be like a turnkey service where we manage the entire experience of registering your stake pools, deploying your ISPO, managing it, and also helping with the token distribution at the end of the day. And so it's kind of like a full package that allows you to securely trust us with the management and the maintenance of those stake pools. Obviously, you want the stake pools to perform as best as possible so that you're able to produce as many blocks as possible, and those blocks turn into rewards. And that's how the projects raise fund to the ISPO.
Now, for all the listeners and viewers of this that are coming outside of the Cardano ecosystem and coming into it and only hearing about initial stake pool offerings, ISPOs, for the first time, can you give a overview of what they are and how people participate in an ISPO compared to something like an IDO or an ICO, initial coin offering?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to assume that people know what ICOs and IDOs are, right? They are this way to do crowdsourcing fundraisers in crypto for projects to raise funds. And they have been very popular, but they do have sometimes regulatory constraints depending where you live. ISPO, like you say, is initial stake pool offering. And the first ISPO was created last year in 2021. Meld was the first project that came up with the ISPO. And it's something that, as far as I know, is only possible on Cardano, or at least it's really becoming really popular on Cardano. And so essentially what that means is that people, when they stake to a blockchain, right, they earn staking rewards. And so with the ISPO, what you do is you divert the staking rewards away from the delegators to the project owners. And in exchange for giving up your staking rewards, you're getting in exchange the project token. So in a way, it's kind of a swap, but the intermediary is the blockchain. And so that's actually a really crucial point, is the network is facilitating that exchange. And so it's not an actual trade that's happening. And so one side effect of that is that it makes ISPOs actually legal and authorized in, as far as I know, every country that allows staking, whereas ISOs have a bit more regulatory constraints. So that's one nice thing about it. But another good thing is that because you're giving away your staking reward, you're actually not spending your ADA, for example. You're just staking it. And so you're taking a bit less risk. And as long as you're willing to give away your rewards, you will get that project token in exchange. So I think, to me, it's a really elegant way to run, to raise funds. It's kind of a really innovative mechanism. Another advantage is that it's a fair way, right? It's public, it's inclusive, and it allows to distribute your token to the community in a fair way that basically allows anyone that can stake to participate.
And I absolutely love the model because I am not losing out on my initial ADA that I'm contributing to the platform. So like ICOs, you're essentially selling your investment or your holdings of your ADA. And this is, you're just giving up the rewards. It takes a longer time, but I absolutely love that model because the project might go well, it might not be, but I'm not losing out on that initial amount of ADA that I've always had. And I think that's really important and really key as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe another point is they actually do take time, right? It's not like an ICO where it's just like 2 weeks, you spend your money and it's gone and you get your token. Here you have to delegate for months on end to be able to get your rewards. And so it also builds the relationships with the project, right? It's harder to trick a project into an ISPO because initially you can hype it up, but if you're not constantly delivering to the community, showing you're making progress, showing that your project has momentum and is delivering, then you can lose your delegation very quickly because no one's locked, right? At any time your delegators can leave. And so I think it's a very honest way of, it's kind of like pure like capitalism where if you don't deserve it, then they'll just leave to go to someone else. So it keeps projects honest and on their toes to engage the community and make sure that they're able to deliver and meet the deadlines to maintain that stake amount and able to raise what they need. So I think that's something you don't have in other fundraising mechanism. And it allows to build a good loyal fan base with your project before you even launch to mainnet.
I think that's really key as well. Like a lot of projects need community behind it, and community is one of the like key aspects of any crypto project. If you don't have the user base, you don't have the community, then you don't really have anything really at the end of it all. And the long play, some of these ISPOs go for majority of them go for about 6 months, but some that I've seen go for like 2 or 3 years. So that's a long time to be delegating to it, but it's really rewarding for those users that do. And there's all sorts of incentives and everything and additional add-ons that you can add in, like boosting rewards and all these things. It's a game theory behind it. It's a lot of fun. It really is, like finding these projects and understanding the mechanics behind them all. Now, there's some cons as well to ISPOs, and ever since the first ones launched last year, like you mentioned, Meld, there's also a lot of resistance in the community as well against them. Can you talk about some of these cons, I guess, in the ISPO models?
Yeah, so I mean, ISPOs have been around less than a year, and they've kind of been actually too successful, right? Meld got over $1 billion in staked. Sunday Swap probably like $4 billion, would be higher numbers. And so they're able to attract crazy amount of delegation because they're really able to excite the community. And what happens is that they are concentrating a lot of the staking into a few pools. And those are like multiple owners, right? As opposed to single pool operators, which can, brought to the extreme, kind of erode the decentralization and by consequently the security of the network. You want a healthy network to be decentralized, and that means having staked ADA across as many pools as possible, and preferably single operator pools, as opposed to like agglomeration of like entities. So that's kind of been the side effect that people have noticed, and so people have tried different methods, right? You have the fair stake pool offering, where you can delegate to community pools instead of delegating to individual pools. I even like Sunday Swap did a reverse ISPO where they tried to incentivize people to go back to single pool operators and kind of increase decentralization. And Maestro actually, we're going to take a slightly different approach. So yeah, we're keenly aware that making it easier for ISPOs as a service to be launched, through our platform. If this grows a lot, right, that could also contribute to centralization. So we actually haven't talked that too much yet. So we haven't made an announcement, but I'll give a little idea that when you run an ISPO, you have two types of nodes. You have the block producer node, and then you have relays that connected to that block producer, and you may have multiple relays. And so we thought we do want to control the block producer because that's what we're managing for the clients. But maybe the relays don't need to be managed and doesn't to be centralized, right? Maybe we can get the community to run the relays that are specifically linked to our block producers. And so the relays play a key role, right, in connecting the block producer to the rest of the network, able to propagate blocks and then pass on blocks to be validated. And so we could use a kind of a hybrid system where community pool operators could apply to become a relay in our platform, and they would be selected based on their performance and their ability to have a node that is highly available, right, and performs well and is well maintained. And in exchange for being a relay, then they will be compensated, right, to some kind of incentive structure. We haven't really decided, but it probably could be something related to a portion of the ADA raised to the ISPO could be distributed to some amount to the relay nodes and therefore to the community. And so hopefully that would create incentives where the community actually would benefit from participating in ISPO, as opposed to what sometimes it happens is that sometimes small pools see their level of delegation actually decrease when a big ISPO comes on, and then they try to wait patiently until it's done to hopefully see that delegation come back. So that's kind of the approach we're taking, a kind of a hybrid approach where hopefully it can be a win-win for both sides. So we'll give more information later, but that's the idea.
That's a really cool, interesting mechanism that you're putting in play there, and I think it will really help out with a lot of small stake pool operators as well. Plus, a lot of stake pool operators have a good marketing following. So a lot of these pools, they communicate every day, they engage with their delegates and engage with the community. So I guess you could also leverage over their communities and followings for the particular projects that you're partnering up with as well. So there's a lot of benefits for both sides there, which is really, really cool. And this whole mechanism of how the ISPOs work, I can see it really, really evolving over time with different token distributions. I saw with Igon, I think it's Igon, that have like a interesting split in the Genius yields. I think it was Gen's 2 pool for the Genius X ISPO, where they're distributing 50% Gen X tokens and 50% Igon tokens as well. So a lot of these different mechanisms in there can really help out with token distribution marketing and all sorts of things in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of flexibility to be creative, and we've seen a lot of different reward equations that people have tried, and people keep trying new types of reward structures or even like loyalty programs. The one we're doing with Genius X is an accelerator program that helps projects kind of ramp up and accelerate their journey to deployment. And so Igon is one of their portfolio projects. And so since they were having a ISPO that was going to be overlapping, we thought, well, why not create a pool where when you delegate to that pool, you get 50% Gen X token, 50% Igon, so that delegators don't have to make a choice between one or the other, right? Or maybe like splitting a wallet. Sometimes it's just easier if you say, I want both of those tokens, I can delegate into. So this, I think, more specific because there's a strong relationship between those two projects and they want to support each other. But like you said, there is a lot of flexibility. And so who knows what kind of new mechanisms and creative ways people will find to incentivize people to participate in those ISPOs.
So what's the future of Maestro going to look like? So you're providing all these particular services at the moment for projects within the Cardano community. Are you going to take the project any further? Are you going to offer new products and services on top of this?
Yes, so Maestro has a much bigger vision. And right now we're focusing more the marketing on our website on the ISPO platform. But the idea is to become a infrastructure provider at large in Cardano. We realized that a lot of being myself, like working at Genius Yield, going through the hurdles and challenging of building a DEX and integrating it with the smart contract, deploying it, there's a lot of tooling and abstraction that is missing on Cardano. Not because there's a problem with Cardano, just because Cardano is just a young blockchain with a very different design in its smart contracts. The fact that it's using UTXOs and not an account-based model like Ethereum, the fact that it's using Haskell instead of Solidity, it means that a lot of things that are built on Ethereum, the EVM system, cannot just be copied over, right? And I think what people forget is when Ethereum first came out, right, and until we had the DeFi summer of 2020, right, there was like 4 or 5 years of just developers just working in the shadows, building the tooling, building the abstractions, building the infrastructure to allow the DeFi summer to happen, right? So it takes time, especially when the system is completely brand new, for developers to really build a lot of like the foundational pieces that then once you have that, then it's kind of like a snowball and it's really easy to develop. And I think that's what Cardano is experiencing is people are being very patient, but there's also a bit of frustration on like the speed of the DeFi apps being deployed on the mainnet. And that's because we're in this awkward situation when a lot of developers are actually building some of those core building blocks. And the situation we saw is that a lot of projects on Cardano are kind of each reinventing the wheel themselves and building their own block. And so, but we're all building very similar things. So with Maestro, we want to kind of really take what we've built for Genius Yield and kind of package it up into tools and abstractions that can be easily used by other DeFi projects or other dApps so that they can go from ideas to implementation to deployment faster and really skip the steps of kind of reinventing the wheel every time. So we see ourselves as first this ISPO platform, but then building a Node API to make it easy to submit transactions, but also to query transactions. So there's a lot of things to do with like be able to filter and process transactions and be able to index a lot of that information, especially in data heavy applications like DEXs, right? There's a lot of processing that needs to happen. And so we thought we can find some good abstractions that we can then provide like an API on top of that and provide that as a service to help other projects be able to develop and launch fast on Cardano. And hopefully these kind of tools is a win-win for all of us, right? We want Cardano to become a vibrant and, like dynamic DeFi ecosystem. And we need to remove the friction to development. And I think having more and more like infrastructure level tooling and companies are really fundamental for increasing the speed of development. So this is what Maestro kind of placed itself as kind of this platform level B2B interaction. And so we'll give more details later on exactly what those products will be. But right now, the first one that's public is this ISPO platform.
I'm hearing from a lot of community members that tooling is the biggest thing. And if you look at Project Catalyst at the moment, so many of the proposals is around tooling. A graph API for this, a different tooling for this. So it's really needed in the ecosystem, and that's a definite fact. And it's going to be really interesting to see what type of APIs and services that you guys pull out, because I'm a front-end dev. I build integrations with various APIs for businesses in general, and having those APIs just makes it so much easier. Like I do not want to take care of infrastructure. I don't want to build up another AWS server with 64 mega RAM just to run DB sync on the Cardano blockchain so I can query it through a database. Like seriously, I don't want to pay that kind of fees, every single month just to run an infrastructure project, so then I can display something on a website. Like seriously, that's just overwhelming. So hurry up.
Yes. Yeah, we know it's a need, and obviously we're not the only one doing that, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a problem, right? We're all making a big push in infrastructure and we're helping each other. I think it's going to be a win for all of us. And like you said, like people don't want to maintain infrastructure, and even the people that can do it don't want to do it because it just adds more friction. It diverts development bandwidth towards infrastructure where they could be focused on something else. And if you look at traditional tech companies, right, a lot of the infrastructure is automated, right? You have AWS for a reason, right? Netflix, all of Netflix around the world is run on AWS, right? They don't have a single server that they manage. They really like offload a lot of that basic infrastructure functionality to AWS. And a lot of tech companies are able to develop and launch so quickly because of all the tooling that exists to build a website. Now you don't even need to code to build a website, right? You could go to like Squarespace, and in a few clicks, you could have, a portfolio website without ever coding. But that took 20 years, right? To achieve that maturity. If you were trying to build a website in the 2000s, trust me, it probably felt like build on Cardano, right? It's very frustrating. It's very tedious. You have to get your hands dirty in so many aspects. And so I think I want to remind people on Cardano that we're like in the internet in the 2000s, and there's a lot of like rough edges, but it doesn't mean that the potential is there. And the once we get our momentum going, I think the upward trend and the growth that we're going to experience is really going to surprise a lot of people.
I have to say, building a website back in the early 2000s was a lot of fun, though. Putting an animated GIF everywhere you could on a website was, the goal. As many animated GIFs as possible was the key to a successful website, I think, back then. But no animated GIFs on anything Cardano based, please. But okay, so in terms of people reaching out and maybe projects wanting to start their own ISPO, where can we go to find out more information about Maestro and engage with your team?
Yeah, so we have a website called gomaestro.org. And then we have a contact button at the top and maybe at the bottom as well. So just shoot us an email, and then we'll set up a call to learn more about your needs at an ISPO. What are your goals? What is your timeline? We do kind of do a bit of a vetting process because we do want to make sure that the ISPO that we associate ourselves with are going to be successful and are serious projects. We'll in terms of bandwidth, we have some limited bandwidth in how much you can scale at the beginning, but we'll bring a lot of more automation as well around stake pool registration and reward sharing that would allow us to really ramp up the number of simultaneous ISPO we're going to do. But if you don't need to be starting an ISPO to go on our website, we also have like a free tier kind of ISPO dashboard, where we want to become an aggregator of all the ISPO on Cardano. And that's not just the ISPO we work with, it's just anyone, right? I think we've all been through the experience of hunting through Twitter, trying to find out what is the next ISPO. Am I in the right one? Is there one coming up? And it's unless you're really deep into the space, I think it's a bit difficult to find ISPOs, and it's also difficult for small projects to get noticed in their ISPO. And so we thought, really we need some aggregator like Cardano Cube, right? But for ISPOs, to make it super easy to see what are the currently active ISPOs, what are the upcoming active ISPOs, so I can plan where I'm going to be staking my ADA, and I can also compare side by side different projects and get a sense, of which one is really worth my delegation, which one is earning my trust, because obviously you need to earn that delegation. And then it will help smaller projects get noticed. If there are a lot of high quality small projects, small teams that deserve so much more attention, but maybe it's hard for them to get the critical mass to get that exposure. And so hopefully through that aggregated dashboard, the best gems of Cardano would stand out and be able to attract the delegation that it deserves.
I'm constantly trawling through Twitter and websites and Reddit, etc., to find all these ISPOs. And I think I've found some really cool gems. And I can tell the community are really eager for these, because if you look at the YouTube stats and the views for all the videos that I do on ISPOs, it's probably some of my highest videos ever that get these views and eyeballs on. So it's a very desirable thing, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about all the ISPOs that you guys come across as well through your ecosystem and on the website of gomaestro.org.
Yes, thank you, absolutely.
So I'll leave you with this. What do you think the future of ISPOs is going to look like? Will we see the community grow? Will it die off in is it a fad? Will it die off in a few years?
No, I think it's going to become the de facto ways someone's going to raise money, right? You still have, VCs, many projects in DeFi, it's still to the VC route. And it works, right? VC have a lot of capital. They can raise money very quickly, but it's still an elitist group, right? I can be a VC, right? I can just put $100 in a company. I need to be licensed. I need to have a portfolio. I need to have millions of dollars. And so it kind of creates a huge barrier for entry. And often the biggest gains are at the seed level, right? The seed level investors will get by entering early into project, they get multiple X's on a project, almost guaranteed, right? So it's really this unfair kind of game where it's kind of this gated community that are guaranteed to get high yields, and then everyone else is waiting for later on when the upside is a bit lower. And so I really love ISPOs because it really lowers the bars. It's inclusive by design. Anyone can delegate, and you can delegate, 10 ADA, 100 ADA, 1,000 ADA. It doesn't matter. You delegate what you can, and you vote with your delegation, right? The project that is able to convince not just a few VCs, but the most community and earn that trust and their loyalty will get more rewards and will succeed over time. So it's a very democratic way of sort of fundraising. So I think it is in line with a lot of the ethos of the blockchain, right? Being more inclusive, not being censor resistant, and being decentralized. And so I really hope that on Cardano, it continues to grow and become vibrant. People come up with new and exciting ways to attract people to ISPO, and that it allows anyone, to start an ISPO and fund their project, and not having to jump through regulatory hoops to do that. So I think ISPO have a bright future, and it's just the beginning.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Marvin, for joining me on this episode. It's been really enjoyable listening to the whole vision of Maestro and what ISPOs are to the Cardano ecosystem and to crypto fundraising in general.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
So if you're staking your ADA on an exchange at the moment, you won't be able to participate in an initial stake pool offering. You need to do this within a Cardano native wallet, such as Nami Wallet, Eternal, Yoroi, Daedalus, one of those wallets that will hold in a non-custodial way your ADA so you can control and manage it directly. Now, if you want to learn how to do that, there are plenty of videos. I'll put links to a playlist there for you so you can learn how to actually move your ADA off an exchange into one of these Cardano native wallets and then start delegating your ADA to a particular stake pool. It's really quick, it's really easy to do. And the best thing about it is that your ADA isn't locked into any of these staking mechanisms. Your ADA is freely able to move in and out of these ISPOs at any point in time. So if you need to sell for whatever reason, you can. If you need to buy a hot new NFT, you can. So you have that full flexibility, and that is so good with the ISPO model. I absolutely love that. So now I've put all the links down below to Maestro or their social channels as well, so you can follow the project. And if you're interested in running your own ISPO, you can talk to the team there. Tell them that you watched the podcast and you are very interested in starting up your own ISPO. I'm sure Marvin will look after you. Now, if you really enjoy this type of content, please consider giving me that thumbs up, click subscribe, click on the notification bell, and you hear more from me real soon. See you in the next vid.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debate.